Welcome to Global One Media Stocks to Watch. I'm Michael Suido. I'm speaking today with Dan Symons. He's the CEO of C3 Metals. They're a mineral exploration company that's focused on copper and gold deposits in Jamaica and Peru. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for having me.
I know you're joining us from Toronto today. How's the weather there today?
It's a beautiful spring day here in Toronto. We're going to hit over 25 Celsius later this afternoon. So we're finally getting our first glimpses of summer.
Fantastic. Now, I know you've been working in mining for over 15 years, and you took over the helm at C3 Metals about 2 years ago. So I'm curious, what attracted you to the company?
It's interesting. I started my career working with earlier stage exploration companies and in a company by the name of Remarco Minerals, and we made a meaningful gold discovery in South Carolina. And at the time, almost similar to what we have to do now in Jamaica, is educate people on the opportunity of a jurisdiction that's not in the forefront of people's minds for mining. We made a meaningful discovery. 7 years later, fast forward, we were acquired at a substantial premium, and our shareholders did extremely well. I moved from there to operating companies where, started with a company with 2 operating mines. We built up that portfolio. It's the company's 5 operating mines today. And from there, it's actually 18 years now this month in the industry, and you start to understand where you have the most passion. And for me, it's the discovery potential through exploration and really the value creation. Although it's higher risk, when you get it right, you can create a lot of value for not just shareholders, but stakeholders within communities. I'm very passionate about seeing the development of communities in poorer areas and poorer jurisdictions, and seeing that generational change as a community can be lifted up.
Oh, fantastic. I love the way you bring everybody into the picture, all the stakeholders. So your company is a focus, like we said, on both gold and copper, and both metals have had significant run-ups this year. The spot prices for both are up about 20% or more since January. I'm just curious, do you expect this bull run to continue? And if so, how does it impact your business?
Yeah, so I think in the short term, it would be normal to see slight healthy pullbacks because things have moved quick. But we do think that the mid and long-term projection for both metals is higher for gold, obviously, as a inflation hedge. Central banks are in a tough spot with, particularly in the US, with mounting debt out there and higher interest rates. Just servicing the debt is adding trillions to the deficit. So at some point that's going to have to correct, and that rates start getting cut, that leads to inflation. Just even the talk of rates being cut is what moved gold substantially higher and touching all-time highs above 2,400. On the copper side, we're very much mid to long-term copper bulls. We think that what we're seeing today is just as we saw the beginning with the invention of the combustion engine and moving away from horse and buggy. We think the electrification of the world, and I don't just mean electric vehicles, but that will play a huge part of it. But just the move away from fossil fuels into cleaner energies, whether it's wind turbines or solar panels, hydro, charging stations for electric vehicles, all these, you need copper to conduct that electricity, and there's no new meaningful supply scheduled to come on market. So the incentive pricing for new mines to come on is higher than we are today, and that means that we're pretty bullish on copper in the long term.
Fantastic. Well, speaking about supply, let's take a closer look now at your project, starting with the one in Jamaica. I find it interesting. There's a company there called Geophysics Jamaica, and they hold most of the mineral exploration licenses on the island. Your company signed a joint venture agreement with them in March to look for gold together. Fast forward 2 months, and one of the biggest names in the industry, Barrick Metals, announced another JV with Geophysics Jamaica. And if I understand correctly, their project essentially surrounds yours. So Dan, I have to ask you, is Barrick Metals taking a cue from you?
I think we're fortunate that we were the first mover, and we were able to pick up what we consider very strategic ground in Jamaica. We have exposure to 270 square kilometers of mineral licenses, which is a very large footprint in and of itself. The deal that Barrick's done to enter Jamaica really dwarfs what we're doing with 4,000 square kilometers, and they'll essentially surround us. So, we feel like we have the premier land position in the country. Barrick coming in can only help shed a spotlight on Jamaica. We've been saying for the last year and a half that Jamaica has a very similar geologic setting to the Dominican Republic, for instance, where Barrick is operating a world-class gold mine in Pueblo Viejo, which produces close to 1 million ounces a year. And Jamaica is just completely underexplored in the same type of geological setting. So the potential for meaningful discovery is very high. It carries a lot more weight when the CEO of Barrick is out talking about it than little C3 metals. So I think anything we can do to put the spotlight on the mineral potential in Jamaica is a positive, and we're happy to welcome Barrick to Jamaica.
Fantastic. Now, you recently completed some drilling on the Jamaica properties. Based on what you've seen so far, is the project economically viable?
We're going to need to do more work to be able to determine that. We're pretty early in the process, but anytime you have the type of copper or gold footprint that we have that stretches over 18 kilometers, where we're getting very high copper and soil geochemistry, the geophysical data is holding together, and the drill holes that we're hitting are long, broad intercepts that are in line with operating mines today. So we've confirmed that the grade of the copper and gold there would be, if you look at current operating mines, should be economically viable. Now it's about building volume. So it's making sure you have enough tons of rock to have the economies of scale. And that'll take some time with future drilling, but that's what we intend to do.
Returning to that JV with Geophysics Jamaica, I think it's worth pointing out that Bobby Stewart, who's the founder of that company, he took a 5% stake in C3 Metals last year via a private placement. All right, I want to travel now to Peru and take a look at your flagship project there, which is in the southern part of the country. As we mentioned, you're focused primarily on copper and gold. And we know that in exploration, much like in property, location is paramount. So what about this site in Peru tells you that you're positioned for success?
We're in a world-class, very well-known copper belt in southern Peru. We sit 35 kilometers from two operating mines that Hudbay Minerals is operating in Constancia and Pampacancha mines. We're 40 kilometers from a world-class mine that MMG is operating called Las Bambas. So we're clearly in the right jurisdiction. You go further to the southeast, Glencore is operating as well. And then big companies like First Quantum Minerals have pre-feasibility stage deposits where you look at the tons of rock and the grade profile. We believe that these will be mined someday. We moved into this area through the acquisition of a private company a few years ago called Latin America Resource Group, and that gave us exposure to 57 square kilometers. And then as quietly as we could over the next couple of years, we went out and did other deals with other companies, with prospectors and good old-fashioned staking available claims. And we expanded that footprint from 57 square kilometers to just over 300 square kilometers today in a world-class district. And the reason that we did that is we've identified 15 potential deposits on this property. Thus far, we've only systematically drill tested that first one, and that's what gave us our initial resource of 52 million tons of 0.5% copper and 0.2 gold, which equates to about 570 pounds of copper in the ground and about 325,000 ounces of gold in that first of 15 that we've drill tested so far.
Okay, so you mentioned that there's 1 out of 15 that you drill tested so far. You've done some drilling testing, as you mentioned. I mean, how far along in the exploration program are you? How many years forward are we looking before perhaps you can actually start mining there?
Yeah, so to begin mining, we would have to convert from exploration licenses to mining licenses. We'd like to get a little bit more volume in terms of the amount of rock that we're dealing with to maximize the economies of scale. So we have a drill permit in hand where we can go after the next 2 deposit prospects and see if we can add to what we have. as well as we're making good advancements on other parts of the property to gain the access to be able to do the work that we want to do with drill permits in other areas. So it's, exploration. It's a little bit like venture capital. It's a high risk, high reward game. When you get it right, you can do extremely well for shareholders and stakeholders. And what gives us confidence, quite frankly, in both Jamaica and Peru is we're hitting through our drilling that we're doing, we're finding copper and gold grades that are in line or above current operating mines out there. So really at this point, it's about continuing to drill, add volume. So then you have the economies of scale for processing, and then you're off to the races.
All right, well, speaking of risk and reward, let's take a look at the investment side of the equation. Like many mining exploration companies, C3 Metals' share price has had a bit of a rough ride this year. It's trading well off its 52-week high, and it's down about 35% since January. So Dan, why do you think investors should take a fresh look at the stock? Why is it a stock to watch?
Yeah, I think it's a really good opportunity. When we think about our portfolio, when we talk about the 300 square kilometers of prospective ground in Peru, and when we talk about the 270 square kilometers of prospective ground in Jamaica, if you look at our existing resource that we have out, that 570 million pounds of copper, even throwing out the gold, only looking at the copper and only looking at that one deposit that we've systematically drill tested in Peru, that means we're only valuing the company today at about 3.5 cents per pound of copper in the ground. So as we continue to find more and build more, most companies, when they move into development, start trading closer to 10 plus cents per pound of copper in the ground. So that's the re-rating potential that we have. And as we find more, then there will be more confidence that this is going to be developed.
All right, so you definitely see a lot more potential for upside.
Absolutely. I mean, we're the type of company right now where I think that you buy a share of C3 Metals today, you're basically paying for an exposure to one deposit that's been systematically drill tested, where we have 14 more to go in Peru, and we have 16 in Jamaica to test. So we're in a position where there's a lot of blue sky upside that can be delivered through the drill bit.
Fantastic. The Stocks to Watch team met you not too long ago in Toronto. That was at an exposition put on by the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada. And we've been keen to have you on the program ever since then. So I hope we can have you back again soon.
Thanks, Michael. Really appreciate it.
We've been speaking with C3 Metals CEO Dan Symons, and you've been watching Global One Media's Stocks to Watch. I'm Michael Suardo.